for your life.
You got another day coming.
Alright, now we're going to do a short review on this beautiful piece. It's a KJW MK2 that's been highly modified. If you want to see how this was modified, here's the video link and it will be in the description below. We're going to look into what it does stock, what it does after it's been upgraded, and what it can do, what the possibilities of this system are. Let's get right to it with the accuracy, FPS, closer look at this, all the working parts, and a breakdown of the gun. Then I'm going to go through the pros and cons of the gun, both pre and post modification. Accuracy test of this, a KJW MK2. Now I have highly modified it, but what has stayed the same is the inner barrel and hop-up assembly. So I have not changed anything in the inner barrel and hop-up. What I did change is the FPS, because it was shooting at 480 FPS when I got it. I needed to lower that a lot to be able to get into any parts, so I lowered it to 300 FPS. It shoots around 300 to 305 right now, and that will get me a 10-foot engagement at most places. That's why I did the 300 range. For the accuracy test, we'll be using 0.36 gram air splat BBs. These are the same BBs I use in all of my rifles, and I'm trying to make sure all my pistols use the same BBs as well. For places that don't use 3.6 gram, I always use 0.25s or whatever the max is allowed there. We're going to see how it performs with 0.36s at 50 feet, 100 feet, and then 160 feet. I have my zoom camera on here, and so we will be using that. I hope it works. It's been a little finicky lately, so we'll see how it works. Honestly, at 300 FPS, I will say this pistol struggles a lot, and at 160 feet, at 300 FPS, it struggles quite a bit, so keep that in mind. So here, starting off at 50 feet. All out of the BBs at 50 feet. Honestly, it hits it at 50 feet very easily. A few flyers, that's understandable, but at 50 feet, you should be hitting almost every time with every pistol. So, all right, now we're going to be shooting for the 100-foot target. Brand new CO2 in here, so we'll see how that performs as well. Honestly, I hate to say it, but at this FPS, I'm pretty disappointed. It definitely does not outshine any of my other pistols, and at 300 FPS, it's even struggling at 100 feet, because I don't consider a couple of hits good. I consider almost a whole magazine good. So I definitely, if I was hitting someone at 100 feet, I'd make sure there were 4 or 5 shots on them. So at this FPS, 300 FPS, which is what I need it to be at, or something around that, it is struggling. So keep that in mind if you need to lower the gun's FPS to use it at whatever park you're going to use it for. Now let's go try it at 160 feet, see what that does for us. So it was struggling at 100, so let's see how it struggles at 160. So it didn't hit the target at 160 feet, and that is obviously a problem. I suppose this is definitely a 100-foot and less engagement distance weapon. I would be very wary if I was using this at anything past 100 feet then. So be careful if you're using it at 300 FPS. Alright, and I also did want to show you guys what it does with a little bit heavier spring in here. So I just dropped a heavier spring in here. So we're going to see what it can do. I'm not sure the FPS in this. I'll test it and put it up here. But we're going to see what it can do at a higher FPS at the same distances with the same BBs. So 50 feet. So at 50 feet it shoots in a different place. I had to get it, I had to readjust for the different placement, but at 50 feet it is dead on accurate. So now at 100 feet. Wow, that is actually performing a ton better. That is actually really weird how good that's performing. I'm blown away at actually that performance. That's kind of cool to see. Honestly, a little upsetting that at a higher FPS the gun performs night and day differences. So if you can use this gun wherever you're using it at a higher FPS, I would suggest that highly. So I would suggest to have it at whatever the highest FPS you can have it at. We're going to try it for 160 feet now. So that was really good. It was actually off of the scope, so I was having to just freehand that. But that was really good, and actually a lot of that was probably due to me moving around a little bit. So I will admit that at 160 feet, it can definitely hit a target with a higher FPS very easily. So now we're going to do the FPS test of the KJW MK2 or Mark II. So this, I know I have it sort of rigged up as some sort of weird blaster pistol, which looks kind of cool, I gotta admit. But this is my chronograph. You'll be able to see it right there. These are 0.2 gram air splat BBs, what I always use. So here it goes with the first spring. This is with the short hammer spring. So it's shooting right about around 300. Honestly, it's actually varying quite a bit. Alright, so now here's the KJW with the second spring in it. So this is the much heavier spring. Okay, that looks about right. So it's not really sure why it's giving us random readings. There we go. See, 450 is about where I'm seeing the BBs. No way. There's no way it's at 1,000 FPS. So we're going to do the old can trick, and we're going to see if we can go through this side of the can. Oh. It went through both that and the other side of the can. That's it's got to be quite high. What it shoots out with the lower spring is around 300 and 9 FPS, it seems like 305. It was shooting around that the entire time. It jumped up a little bit to 340 when the brand new CO2 was put in there. So keep that in mind. But with the larger spring in here, I seem to get no real results. I think it was, I don't know, around 450 to 480.
Alright, so I have a pretty inaccurate decibel meter, but this is what we have so far. You can see this is my decibel meter. The average right now is about 51 with my voice talking. I'm going to go ahead and reset it once I'm ready to fire. How loud this gun is and then how loud a normal gun is from a few feet away. So I'm going to hold it about this distance and just go ahead and fire it. So, alright, let's test the KJW MK2. Alright, so far it's reading about 71 maximum, so that's about what the KJW is firing at. Alright, so 76 maximum was the KJW's max decibels according to this, which is just a very cheap decibel meter. Free actually on the App Store, so it's just something I picked up. Now we're going to test it against the FNX 45 that I have. I'll also reset it. That actually was hitting a lot lower in decibels than the KJW MK2. That's pretty quiet compared to most gas blowbacks. I didn't expect that because I just put on the RMR, and that apparently made it a lot quieter, which is quite interesting, but and unexpected. But with it right next to the phone, it was hitting 76, just like the KJW, but with it pretty far away from the phone, it was hitting actually only about 68. So KJW is louder, which is the whole reason I bought it, was to be quieter because it's a non-blowback. But we're going to see what it can do with a suppressor on it, and we're going to do all these mods to it and see what happens. But so far, 76 decibels, still a lot quieter than most Airsoft guns, but pretty bad for a non-blowback. Alright, so it says 65 was the max, and that was without BBs. So 65 was the max, and that was without BBs, so that was a little bit louder. It was averaging around 61 decibels from a few feet away. So all in all, the drop isn't that much, but it's very noticeable when you're next to it or when you're around this. It's extremely noticeable. So now we're gonna go ahead and take it apart. So this is the first time I'm taking it apart, so I'm kind of doing this by guessing. But you take this back piece off, I'm guessing, pull this out, pull that down. I believe there it is. There's the spring. There's a spring that actually, this is where, this is what controls the hammer inside the gun, which is right here. But that's what controls the hammer. That actually might be what changes the FPS of the gun, and that's what I'll be working on in case I use this in CQB. Oh, the whole upper and lower come apart now, so I just pushed it forward. Whole upper and lower come off. You can see there's the hammer, which we're going to go ahead and look at this with the magazine inside. So it's a very, very easy system. It basically hits the back of the magazine and it releases the gas out the front. The BB is in front of this gas release and goes out of the inner barrel. Now, that's obviously pretty loud. I'm not sure if it gets louder or softer because of this, so I'm gonna just go ahead and see if it... Okay, so actually it doesn't hit whatever the stopper is in here, so I don't have to worry about that for when I am actually firing BBs out of the gun, so never mind. But that is incredibly loud. That'll be a good indication that you are out of ammo, that ting. So I'm guessing we pull this piece out, which is metal, and I will be taping this so this doesn't rattle around anymore, because that is very, very incredibly annoying. That's basically all broke down. You can actually get to the hop-up right here now. You can see inside the hop-up. It's a very simple system. Hopefully you can see the actual hop-up pushing down into the barrel. Move it around a little bit. It just looks like a little dot, a little space inside the barrel that's pushing down. It's not a very good hop-up, it looks like. But actually, it's pretty darn accurate. I might change out this hop-up for... Apparently I've heard that the KJW M700 hop-ups work in this, so I'll see if that does. Oh, really nice crowning on the inner barrel as well. Nice crowning, very nice polish in here. Polish, pretty nice. Again, so not too impressed with the hop-up. Could have really done better there. Alright, so now we're going to go through some pros and cons of the gun. Pre-modification, we're going to go with the cons first, then the pros. So pre-modification, it was very loud. This was actually louder than my Cybergun FNX45, so that was a definite con. In addition, had a very long trigger pull. Could not get follow-up shots as quickly as the FNX45 as well, so being louder and not being able to get the quick follow-up shots is a definite con. Pre-modification, it had a non-adjustable rear sight, non-adjustable front sight, so everything was basically fixed. Cons were you couldn't add anything to the... There was no lower rail, there was no spot to put a lower rail, basically. There was no suppressor adapter, there's no threads, and that was all the problem. So that's what made me modify. Pre-modification pros were it was a full metal upper system, including the outer barrel and upper receiver. The lower is all plastic, but it is extremely well built plastic, and I am not worried about it breaking at all. Front sight is still here, which I really enjoyed the front sight. That's definitely a pro about the gun, is the front sight is excellent with the tritium, or whatever that's supposed to be. Was excellent, and it was a well-built system that shot at a very high FPS, which to me that is a pro, because it can take higher FPS and you can obviously lower it later on, so you know it can handle a higher FPS. So cons after the modification are it's obviously much more difficult to build a Kydex holster for it. It's much bulkier. It's much different in the shapes. The Kydex was very difficult to mold. It's much longer, which I believe is a con. I want it to be as compact as possible. Barrel systems are not the same width, and they're not built for each other, so obviously you might have a problem in the future with them coming apart or them wobbling, problems there. So I don't have many cons after the modification, except for my biggest problem is the accuracy after modification. Now, it is not due to the suppressor or any of the internal parts up here, any of the accuracy parts you would think of. It's actually due to the spring back here that controls the FPS. Now, this gun at a lower FPS, which I have it set at about 300, which you've seen earlier, it
really doesn't perform that well. So that is a huge con. Huge con. At 300 FPS, this gun struggles extremely. Now onto the pros. I'm going to do the flip side of that. At a higher FPS, it gets rifle distances. It is awesome. It gets extremely accurate, and this is with a stock bucking, which actually, to me, when I looked at it, I was not impressed by it at all. And I think you could get a better bucking in here from apparently a KJW M700, and so I would highly recommend getting one of those and seeing what the accuracy is. So, pro is higher FPS means better accuracy, which to me is not the case in any part of Airsoft up until right this moment. So that's interesting that a lot of ideas are higher FPS, better accuracy for newer Airsofters, and that's never been the case for me, and now it is. So I guess that's pretty ironic. It's extremely quiet, which was my biggest reason for getting this, and it can still, while being that quiet, can still hit out to 100 feet. I would recommend follow-up shots at 100 foot, or anything past 50, basically. I would recommend a couple follow-up shots, because the accuracy does degrade. Another pro after modifying it is you obviously have a lower rail to attach any modifications you want to the lower part of this gun. Another pro also is the RMR in the back with a rear sight, which are both adjustable, which is very nice. And after considering all of the pre and post modification pros and cons, I want to give my recommendations on this gun. So if you are buying this to keep it totally stock and use it, I hope you're just buying it for the reliability factor, which I'm betting you can find other guns that are more reliable than this. Not saying that this has bad reliability, it's just I'm betting you can find some that are more reliable and better at doing something else as well, because this really didn't do anything that struck me as out of the ordinary or special or a reason to get this other than the reliability and possibility of total modification. And so I would not recommend this if you are not going to modify it. I would not. Now moving on to if you are going to modify it. If I would recommend this if you are going to modify the gun. It's hard for me to recommend it. The only reason it is hard for me to recommend it is because of the hammer spring. That really put a damper on this entire system for me, because as soon as I dropped the FPS down to something in which I could actually use, it became less usable. And that makes me very uneasy in recommending. I recommend this with a warning. If you are trying to use this in some place in which it requires under 350 FPS, it will be far less accurate than, to me, is necessary to use for a sidearm. But if you are using this at somewhere in which you can use a high FPS in sidearms, which I don't know of anywhere, then I highly recommend it. And if you're going to use this as some sort of sniper pistol, I'm sure you can get the accuracy up there to get 160 feet every single shot. I'm sure you can. And then I would recommend this because you can make it silent and you can make it shoot extremely accurately. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I will be using this. I will probably use this as my backup. This will probably be what I will be wearing when I go to play Airsoft. This, including this gun, even though I almost don't recommend it, almost do. I don't know if I do or don't, honestly. But I will be using it, and I'll be using it probably a lot, because in situations in which you get up to somebody and you are 10 feet away, you know you're going to hit them with anything. You could throw BBs at them and hit them. So, why not pull something that A, is at a low FPS, and will not hurt them, and they will not get mad at you about for shooting them too close, and will be completely quiet so their buddies, or they might not even hear you. And that is why I'm going to carry this. That's why I'm going to use it. is because when I come up close to someone and I'm able to peg them a few times and no one hears me, maybe not even that person, then I definitely have a leg up on the competition. At the same time, I can probably go out to 50 feet of a distance and I can hit someone very confidently and no one will hear me. So that is very cool about this. And if you are in the market for a weapon like that, that does all of these things, then yeah, I would recommend this. I might not recommend it over an MK2-3 because I have an easier time modifying those to be more accurate at a lower FPS. So a TM MK2-3 might be a better option than this. But the reason I have this is because I can pull and put it away very easily. It serves all of my purposes and it's a lot smaller than the MK2-3. If you have the same ideas and want the same type of gun, then I highly recommend it. Probably nearly the same noise level as the MK2-3. The MK2-3 just will probably be more accurate at a lower FPS. So if you were looking for that and don't mind compensating some of the weight and bulkiness and length for more accuracy and some of the accessories for more accuracy, then I'd say go with the MK2-3. I'm not going to give an overall recommendation for this gun because I'm not sure yet. So you're going to have to really take everything that I said and do your own research and see if you want it for your own reasons. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with it in the meantime. So if that tells you something, that I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, regardless of the accuracy or the FPS or anything, if that tells you something that you should buy it, then I'd say go for it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will have some more information on this, more videos on this in the future. If you want to see how it was modified into this, look in the description below. Alright, Hero signing off.